Welcome everyone to a special collaboration edition of Blue Collar Elk Hunting. On today's show, I sit down with my friend Guy Duplantier during one of his Western Contours recordings at the Western Hunt Fest for a live, on-the-spot, and in-depth discussion on elk diaphragms and all the options on the market today, what we like and why, as well as different perspectives on purpose and use. Y'all, not only is Guy the producer of the Western Contours podcast, but he's also an Elk Bros coach, contributing member of our Elk Bros Success Squad, and owner of Western Flies, making incredible pack covers and bino covers that you can depend on. And even more importantly, Guy's just a great person and a great friend. You can find more of Guy's Western Contours content on the Carbon TV network. Y'all, enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host and elk hunting coach, Joe Gilligan. You want to hunt elk? They live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
They say. Make sure that they get it.
Decisions.
I know, man.
I don't know that there's no bad call, right? This is the only thing I can't do.
But this thing, if you try to go, I mean, you just got to be light. I mean, it's that light
Touch. That's how this one is. Actually, which is it? Is that latex too? That's that Prof, and that sucker is like damn near no contact. Decisions. So, all right, we're on record. My brother Joe Gillia is sitting across the table from me. We had a slumber party last night after dinner. Woke up this morning, Joe's counting a bunch of money, so I'm not sure what happened after I went to bed.
I was the back spoon.
Hopefully that money was left on my nightstand then. But, yeah, so we're sitting here and, I don't know, we have 40...
I don't know, on your side, you're
40 different diaphragms,
yeah.
Right? And that's the funny thing about it, right? I mean, we could run through just about every size of frame. We got latexes from 1,000th, I think that is, on this, to 4,000 or 5,000. So I'm just gonna shoot the mess about diaphragm makeup, and really, like I was saying, I don't think there's a bad diaphragm out there.
No, I haven't.
Ain't found one yet, really. You know, there's some preference.
But, and that's the one thing, like, I try to tell people too. Sometimes getting calls from different makers, like, okay, so listen, I'm going to give you one here, and just a cow call, listen to them. Now switching over to another maker. You hear that just a little bit different pitch. Now this is like this is one of ours here, one of our signature ones, and it's actually one of our thin. We're doing a little calf and cow. You definitely hear the difference across the board on those things, you know.
Go back to those two with the two.
What's that?
Go back to the two. I think you had the grinder,
Mm-hmm.
the grinder, and maybe it was the Slayer.
Uh-huh.
Can you? Oh no, it was the Carlton. I thought.
What,
Hit those
for
on
cow
the tube.
calls?
No, on the tube.
On the tube?
Yeah, for the bugle, so they can hear that while we're.
So you have that's on a grinder, and I didn't do the cow. Listen to the cow call on the grinder. Listen to the bottom on it. You hear that real bottom on it, right? So yeah, we had the bugle. Let me do that again. Going over to a slayer, and I'm real impressed with this.
Yeah.
In fact, I haven't had a call, man. So we've done the grinder, we've done the Carlton, and I think that's the Carlton.
That's the Carlton.
The blue on that. I think
No, that's
green.
that's the 2000s.
Okay, and then slayer. This is the 200. So you're getting that real high pitched screechy up there. And you know, it's funny because Buddy Mark over at Carlton, give you away one of his secrets, man. He says that the higher and the pitchier it is, he feels like that really catches attention. But what I like about this though is if I'm putting on a scenario, I honestly lay diaphragms on my leg.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'll do like the herd bull with some cows, and I'll just stick with that one diaphragm. And then, so if I'm like doing something like this, I'll do something with like that. Then you're going to bring in that other bull. And I can actually listen to that third one. You hear the different pitches on them, right? So, and that's what I want you to hear, just that different tone on each one of them. And what I would generally do when I'm doing that is, those guys that are out there, I do more of kind of a location or advertising type bugle, right? When they're doing that, just trying to say, you know, oh, I'm over here, right? And so.
So you brought up something, right? We'll get into as much as we can in the time we have here at HuntFest, but I think it was Dirk. I opened up my bow quiver in front of him. I think it was at Expo in Utah, and he says, like a packet of Skittles or something like that, right? And it's but there's a necessity. And I see it a lot, right, as people get comfortable with one diaphragm. And then really, in my opinion, it limits the amount of range and the amount of language they can speak, right, and showing that diversity because it's just the one diaphragm.
Well, so and the reason I'm saying is that elk recognize voices, right? Just like your voice and my voice are totally two different things on this podcast right now, right? Elk hear voices. So if I've been working a bull and I did something that bored him or he starts to walk off, well, if I start to use that same one, I don't care what I'm going to do. He's already done with me. But if I've been doing this, with that tone, and instead I wait, I move, I go to a different direction, and you hear that different tone. So now I have different voice.
Introduce the new animal to it.
Put a new animal into the equation out there. And probably I wouldn't be starting out like that. I wouldn't be going to those type of views. I'm just trying to show tone right now. But you can change the voice. Now the other thing you want to change is I have a natural rhythm. It's my Joe Caller rhythm. You can actually hear it when I call. And I have that right in. That's a rhythm. I might even want to change that to. So I might change that total rhythm up to give that critter a different feel. So that's something to think about too. And I don't think most people think about it. They're always wanting to, just scream that same thing, that same pattern all the time. Well, you got long location bugles, then you got shorter roundup or challenge or display or anything like that, right? Yeah, the display bugle can be longer too. Like it can be a longer lip ball. really displaying for the bulls that are out there, or it can be that shorter lip ball that's displaying for the cows right there, right? So all of that means something.
So when we talk about diaphragms and less call, right?
Okay.
So you got small, medium, large frames,
Right.
and I'm not going to even begin to try and decipher pallets and pallet height, if you will, flatness, arch, right? It runs the gamut. But with all the offerings, I mean, there's something for everybody, and I think there's a multitude of somethings across all the calls, right? So in front of me, this is coming out of my stuff. I got Wapiti River, Phelps, Native, Mile High Note, and then we went and got the Elk Bros grinder, and we went and stole a couple of Slayer calls off of the table. When no one was looking. No, I went and talked about it. But there's so much out there. Dude, there's not a bad call, right? And I think, and I'm subject to it too, right? I mean, with Phelps calls, I've been using Phelps calls since I started elk hunting, and that's been my go-to, right? And I got, that's the packet of Skittles. There's the Jason, there's the Charlie Smith is my favorite. You got the Maverick, but then you got the Pitch Black series,
Pitch
right?
Black's 1 and 2,
1, 2, and 3. Actually, I don't use the one much, but I keep it just if I want to get super.
And I don't
super
use the 3 much. I'm pretty much a 2 person in that. But the thing is like you take a look at the calls and how they're made. So basically, almost everybody's having the same frame. Now you go to Mark and Carlton. He's just created his new V frames, man, that are totally different. And Mark is just like so much finesse on latex, right? But so I think that's where it comes from. Is I think just about all these can be comfortable in your mouth, and it comes down to latex and stretch. So those companies are going to do different latex, different stretch, and there's different types of latex. And so that can give you just a different sound, different pitch, different feel. So I think that's one of the things that I like. Now, when you were talking about like large, medium, and small, I think that's really more important when you're starting out. And I would hope that it wouldn't be, but it is. And the reason is I think more people kind of struggle early on, right?
Yes.
So they're actually better being, under-widthed in their mouth than they are over-widthed,
Absolutely,
right?
I would agree.
So they're looking for something that it could even be smaller than what their palate needs with a light latex, and they're going to be successful, right?
And then as positioning, and you and I talked about that after I got this medium V3, and I was telling you, that smaller frame, I'm sliding that further back in my palate, and man,
which is strange to me because most people end up with it higher and more forward.
Well, and that's. I think it's restrictive, right? Because we talk about behind the eye teeth, right? And people, I think we need to explore. What that versatility from the front to just barely gag reflexing in the back of our palate, what that does in terms of our tonal quality and the sounds we're making out in the field.
Well, if you're keeping if you just take that diaphragm and you pop it straight up in the roof of your mouth in what I call kind of the neutral position there, not the forward position, right around the eye teeth-ish, right around there, then you're going to be able to do. That's really your cow call sweet spot, and you're still going to be able to bugle like that, right? Once you get more finesse and you can run latex better, run calls better, you can start sliding that forward, get a little bit more of an angle on the forward side, and you're going to that's the tip of the tongue bugle type stuff, right? And a lot of guys like that position when they're doing things like lip balling, which I'm not a huge fan of. I don't use a whole lot. I think sometimes people go to a lip ball way too soon.
And it's like just part of the opening repertoire.
Oh, yeah. And they end up doing something like that and really at the wrong time and animal's gone, man. I've seen that happen. But it sounds cool, it's fun to do. You hear bulls doing it when they're trying to keep their cows around them, So that kind of tells you something about that bull. But Or you can keep it forward like that just for ease of screaming as well, right? Okay.
See, and I can't run the diaphragm that far forward.
With an angle?
Well,
you haven't tried that?
With the tip of my tongue?
Mm-hmm. More of the tip? Yeah.
Only the tip.
No.
It freaking tickles my tongue too much.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
Yeah, it's not going to be only the tip. It's just going to be... So all it is that you're using a smaller portion. It's still going to cover across the latex. So when you're saying tip, it's not the very tip. It's just enough to cover that width of that latex. Okay?
That's about as far as I'm like,
Yeah.
That's about as
Yeah, well,
close.
and you've got that fat man's tongue right there too. You know what I mean? So, but and really, it doesn't. Look, here's the thing. Like I was talking about the small, medium, and large, right? Well, anybody that's hunted turkeys, all of those people have been using larges pretty much the whole time, right?
Yep.
And really, here's what I believe is that the more latex you have, so the larger frame that you can run, the more things you can do with that because you have more latex to work with to make different sounds, right? Put some English into it, let's say, right? The smaller as you go down, the less latex, the more uniform those sounds are going to be. They're going to be the same sound. They're going to be constant. They're going to be consistent. That type of thing.
Okay, so that goes back to diversity of calls, right? Mm-hmm. Because uniformity is great. Consistency in sound is almost essential, if not essential. Mm-hmm. But then diversify with, if you look at that
stretch.
With the latex versus our boy Travis's. You know what I mean? I mean that is a third. Maybe just shy of a third more latex to play with,
Well, from a medium frame to a large frame should be about 1/8 of an inch, a 16th on each side, right?
Yeah, because I think you're going from like a 2.5 to a 2.8 generally.
What do you speak? 2.5, 2.8. What do you mean?
The width of it. It's like.
Okay, so when I talk width, I don't talk tape at all.
I know we're talking frame.
Yeah,
but you're go ahead.
Inside of the frame, right? So. And I always look at the inside of the frame, which is going to affect the outside as well, right? So it's going to be that 16th rate, then it takes it out. But what I've found is, and that's what's so interesting about what Mark did, and we had a conversation before his new frames ever came out. I was like, I don't understand why we try to cram a straight edge in across our mouth up there, so we just don't get that good fit. And that's where, if you take a look at Mark's frame, he actually has a little curve so that when it goes into the roof of your mouth, it actually curves down on each side to give you a better, smoother fit. So it's not just digging edge in.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one thing I like about that. But I honestly think, so here I was calling on ours, the grinder. I was calling on Mark's medium. And I believe it's hard to tell here. Yeah, I believe the Slayer's a medium, and then you gave me the Phelps, which is a small. Right? So that one there, that frame is a small frame.
And I think Phelps is a standard frame across the diaphragm.
Yeah, no, I actually think that's a small frame on that because, take a look at that medium frame and then take a look at that one right there. See it?
Look down there, looks what to me.
All right, so look at the inside.
Where's the calipers?
Look at the inside. Look at the difference in that orange and that purple.
Oh yeah.
You see that?
Yeah, I see
okay.
It now.
So that's showing you how much latex you have actually. So that's why I say I never consider the tape on the outside. Now, okay. The only reason you even talk tape is mouth fit and seal, right?
Seal is huge because you'll hear guys buzzing off of it or super flat on their sound, or they plumb just can't figure it out.
They start hissing, spitting, and stuff like that. Well, look, if you're doing any of that, look, I don't care what call you have, cut a V-notch on each side of that tape, and it's going to change everything for you. So that's one thing that when I first met Travis, when I first saw his calls, Travis O'Shea, the Wapiti River calls, when I first saw him and I saw that W notch in it, I went, somebody knows diaphragms, man. Because and the reason he did that was his dad had such a hard time with that gag reflex and getting the right fit, that he started notching for his dad, and it worked good. And then so for Wapiti, he started putting a W. Well, I just always cut a V notch. So what I would do is I would actually run the diaphragm a little bit in my mouth, look to see where the fold was happening, and I would trim it right there. I would just cut that V notch into it. And that, the tape then becomes to me a non-issue once that happens, because once you get the seal. But when you're talking latex, you got to look at, I mean, take a look at mine, look on the inside of that, the large frame versus that small frame.
And those, I think, the grinders and the sugars, I don't know that there's anything that compares to that amount of latex.
No, not on the calls you got there, but Native By Carlton runs a large frame. You just don't have that. You got all medium frames with you.
No, I got some as large. This is a large frame here. I don't think anyone is close to what Travis is running on the Wapiti call in terms of amount of latex.
Yeah, the ones that I ran by Native were that large.
Were they that large?
Yeah, because those large frames are pretty standard. Medium frames are pretty standard. Small frames.
It's still smaller than Travis's.
Let me see.
Still has them.
Yeah, maybe
He does.
Maybe a hair.
Yeah, he still does.
Yeah, maybe a hair on that.
That's one of the things, and for me, it made it harder to use that diaphragm. Remember, I struggled with it last year.
So let me tell you why, though, bro. Is that most people are going to buy a medium frame, right? Most people are going to buy a medium frame. That's pretty much the default frames that are out there.
You think people are looking? I think we're looking at latex. I think we're looking at colors until we get some knowledge.
Absolutely. I don't think they're buying mediums because they're choosing mediums.
Right.
I think they're buying mediums because that's what's mostly on the market.
Right.
Because the medium is the one that's going to fit just about everybody, even if their palate's a little bigger. It's going to fit, but it's just going to be a little higher up in, which is going to shift a little bit forward unless you know what to do with it. Okay? So since that happens that way, so my palate, for example, if I run a medium, it's going to run it really, really high. It's going to run a little bit forward, which means I got to reach a little farther with the tongue. I get that muscle memory doing that, and I'm kind of reaching up, which is creating a little bit more pressure doing that, right? And so now, let me go ahead and put a wide frame in. Well, that wide frame, because of its width, is going to run lower. If I try to run it forward, it's not going to happen because of its width. Our palate is smaller to the front, gets wider as it goes back. So I've got to put it back to my eye teeth, and then I just don't need to reach up as much or put as much pressure.
That was the biggest thing for me because it was the height of the dome, and I was used to reaching up from what I was using before, right? So now the latex is sitting lower, and I'm still, you know what I mean? Just muscle memory, right? And I was like, God dang it, and it was just like I couldn't figure it out. And then it was going to that light latex and then dropping it further back, and I was like, oh, that feels like the grinder when I put it in my mouth. And the only difference is the frame. The dome is taller. This thing I run in the back of my mouth. I mean, it's sitting in the back of my mouth like that, to where my tongue is coming up. There's, zero to no tongue pressure on those two diaphragms now.
Yeah.
I mean, like, none.
Right.
You know?
And actually, that's a good thing, because your calls are going to last longer, your latex is going to last longer, because you're not putting all that pressure on it.
Look at
Yeah. Well, actually, let me see that again. Do that again. So what he's doing is he's actually putting it in, and it's funny because people don't realize most of us run a diaphragm a little crooked in our mouth, just naturally. I don't know why it is. It'll be just a little bit.
Well, it's all the shape of that freaking that palate, man. I mean, that's the thing that's crazy, and I think that's part of the conversation, right? Is getting and saying, and it's kind of hard because diaphragms ain't cheap. Right, I mean, you're talking $6.99 at the low end to $13, $14, $15 at the high end. Yeah. So it's not cost effective for folks to go and just buy and try. Yeah. But I really want people to start thinking about why they're buying. What size frame is this? Okay, I used this diaphragm and I wasn't very efficient on it, or I didn't sound good to myself on it. So let me look at something different. What was the latex on it, right? And really start examining the anatomy of the diaphragm, if you will.
And what I would tell those guys that are doing that are buying and trying like that, is after you try, you determine that one's like, oh man, I'm not going to use this. Do not save it.
Yes.
Put it in your fridge, because here I'm running right now. I'm running a large, medium, and small. You just heard me calling on those, right? Because once you learn to run a call, you can run a call.
You can run all of them.
Yes.
Now, how are you with this? No dome.
Yeah, okay, so that's the original calls. To
Right.
me, that's
Yes.
like when I see that, I see, Wayne Carlton's first calls, I see, Jones' first calls, I see Quaker Boy's first call, I see all of that when I see those. I haven't run one in a long time because I like the
Ease.
ease, man.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to worry about that space between the roof of my mouth and my latex, because that dome does that work for me, right?
But then you hear people that can absolutely sing
Oh, sure.
on them.
Well, not only that, people don't realize that some people's palates
Right.
create better back pressure than others, that create better sound than others. Some people, but, here we're talking about all of this, as far as that goes, but out in the elk woods, it's not that, the nuances like that are more to me about pitch levels on the different ones than it is about worrying about, the call that you're putting out there, as far as, you going, oh, that didn't sound like this person, or that
Right.
didn't sound like that person.
Right.
You want it to sound like elk,
Yes.
right? And so you don't have to sound like a person doing something. I have never called ever on a professional stage. Never been a calling
You
competition.
ain't the only one, buddy.
But
They're fun. I just have no, you know what I mean? Like, it's like my desire is to talk to those animals.
yeah, so I'm on a different stage as far as I'm concerned, and all of that to me is about, it's chasing a different thing, right? But that's just my own personal opinion. That's just how I feel about it. I like being out there and convincing a critter that I'm one of them.
So the guys that you have, you look at Tony, Jermaine, those guys that are in those comps.
Yep.
I mean, they're good to excellent callers, great to excellent callers,
Absolutely.
right? And they get in the woods and they're able to hold their composure. So I think that there's some benefit to it, right? That lead up to competition, that practice for competition, that refinement for competition, and understanding not just the call but the language, right? The linguistics. I think, because you listen to them dudes, if they'll film, put something on Instagram or something, and you're like, hot damn, son, that is beautiful serenades, so there's some benefit to it.
What's interesting is a lot of those calls that they don't use out in the woods,
I would say probably it's Jermaine has his go-to
His
repertoire.
sets, yeah.
So and if you watch him where he's hunting, it's like, you hear it. I don't even have to see it, and I know it's Jermaine, and he's on the mountain call.
He has the most. It's kind of like, man, it's like a cloud call. It's soft as a cloud, man. And I don't mean soft and quiet. I mean, he's just so smooth and pure with that call when it comes out. And it's just, he calls patiently. I mean, even his bugles have a patience to them that a lot of people don't have. It's just so smooth, man. It's
But that goes back to what you said earlier, right? Is you said your rhythm. To me, that's more of cadence as we go through it, right? Because we establish that cadence. I mean, you establish a cadence in your draw cycle to your shot in archery. But then I've noticed that cadence will follow through if you're working cow calls, if you're working that bugle. That cadence is, it's almost standard to the individual.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, like Travis is the same way. He's a lot like Jermaine in that he's real smooth with his calls. He's almost, he's not a real pressure guy. I mean, you'll hear some guy real aggressive on a diaphragm, and you'll hear some guys that are just friggin' chocolate on them, man. It's just just coming across nice and smooth with their calls coming out. So.
What did Keith say to Travis on that live episode we did? He's out there trying to make love to him or something that. And then Travis is like, hey, I'm just a patient caller, right? And it makes sense to his cadence, right? He's in no rush to go get it done.
Right.
He knows he's going to get it done. I'm going to be a patient caller, and I'm going to let them talk back to me or tell me what they want.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's huge. But, the stage calling stuff, I think those guys probably end up on the diaphragm a lot more than the guys calling in September. So I think that's where some of that sweetness comes from, is just that repetition.
Oh, yeah.
In that. But then you watch them, okay, so going back to having diversity in your tools, right? More tools in the toolbox type thing. You get up on, watch them on stage, and they're flipping 3, 4, 5 diaphragms, right? And
let me tell you how many diaphragms they went through to pick those
get
3
that.
or 4 or 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, because they're wanting something that's going to give the sound that they want, that they feel the judges are going to most score best, right? And not only that, and here's what I appreciate about the stage stuff is that those guys can't afford to go up and blow a bad call. It's just like out in the woods when you're going to pop, that cow call out there. You don't want to. You don't want to be popping.
We've all done it.
You don't want to be popping the wrong one like that.
You hit that call and you got somebody with you, and you're like, and it's like, oh.
But one of the reasons, like, you talk about your Skittles. Well, what I'll do actually, though, is, like, I have my all-around, right? I want something that I don't have to change up to. So that's what my grinder is to me, right? I can scream with it, I can cow call with it, I can calf call with it. But what I do is I make sure that I have 3 of my grinders that have been, let's say, broke in, air quote, broke in, right? To where I feel like they're at the spot that I like them. So I'm calling with one. As soon as I feel like it's starting to get warm or wet, I'm putting it back in my reed quiver, and I'm pulling out another one so that I'm keeping them fresh, and it helps their life, and I think it helps me stay smoother in the game with my calls, right?
Man, rabbit holes and tangents. I don't know how I feel about the break-in period, right? I see more detriment of having one in your mouth all day long and it getting super soggy and slobbery than I do pulling one out the pack, dropping it in, and just going to town. Whether it's going to town and I'm not a ridge runner, so I mean just getting on it and making music.
Well, the only thing is though, and what I mean by that break-in period, when you work that latex a little bit, you soften it up just a little bit, right? Well, what that does is let you allow lower volume, because when it's a little bit stiffer, you got to actually give it more air, a little bit more, to get that sound that you want out there. So that means you're giving more volume, and sometimes I don't want that out there. Sometimes I want to be able to
settle that, right? Real soft.
Yeah, because me, I'm more of a low vocal type person, and using, and when I say cow calls, here's what's interesting. I always hear people say cow calls aren't good early season because bulls aren't really interested in cows, right? Well, actually, bulls mew. And that same mew that you're using will bring in bulls for, not because they're after a cow, but because they're still checking pecking order and buddied up with other bulls and want to check it out. I can absolutely use, and I call them bow calls instead of cow calls, but they're mews, man, So I do a lot of cow call types.
Joe identifies as a cow and a bull. That's one of them new fancy things.
Yeah, you hadn't heard that one. That's my new pronoun, bow call, man.
Oh, good Lord. I just, with all the makeup of diaphragms, and me, man, some of these things are probably 3 years old when you come into this pile, and they'll sit in the fridge or sit in a cool spot, so I could always tooth and play with them.
But let me tell you, what's funny about that though, dude, is when I first started calling, I'm buying Primos off of Walmart, off the wall. I'm tuning them because they had that square pallet plate that would go up and down. So you could actually kind of tune them to what you wanted to do. One, if you wanted more bugling power, if you wanted more cow call sweeter, just how you tune that palate plate. And those things were at the time $3-4, right, that you're getting off there. But other people were selling these calls for $5 to $8. Well, I'm being effective with that $3-4 one, so that's the only one I'm picking. I'm not really trying other stuff, right? And you're kind of in a special place, and now I am, because there's people that like, here, try these calls, right? And so now I have like an abundance of calls, and now what I have found is that, like you said earlier, you can't really find a bad call. So now it comes down to, what is the purpose of what you're doing, you know? Me, I do a lot of scenario stuff, so I'm wanting different calls so that I can give different voices. That's the main reason.
When I talked to Mark, I believe it was a medicine bottle and a condom. Was
the first one.
Wayne's first one. Michael Batiste told me a condom and like a raisin box or some crap like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, guys are killing bulls.
Yeah. But remember, when those were happening, the bulls had never heard other people reproducing.
Right,
Yeah.
understood. It's like the Hoochie Mama phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
And that'll probably cycle back around on us at some point. But it just, you know what I mean? Like, we don't have to get wrapped up in it. Now, if you're a fanatic, getting wrapped up in it is not a problem. And I love sitting there tinkering and messing with calls and trying to understand with the latex. When you and I had this conversation, I started talking about it with Mark, and I think we started talking something else, and I never brought it back around. The only thing that I wish with the, you know, when we start talking about seal, right now, if you have a guy that's, call it a small, or, you know, we say guys all the time. If, you know, my wife, if women wanted to call and they got a smaller palate and you got a small frame, we need to look at tape size. Right. And for me, on that medium frame, when I drop it back, the gaff tape on that is way better than like the call armor. But I love the call armor. Last season, I really kind of fell in love with it because I could walk around stuffing my cheek, and then I don't get any degradation.
Yeah, you didn't end up with with the tape leak and stuff. Yeah,
the tape leak. That's a.
Yeah.
That'll make you want to chuck it.
Yeah, the glue.
That pisses me off.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. I'm so used to that flavor. You know, that glue,
the glue flavor. Yeah. Like the end of September, when you're done with them, you're like, huh. But I really appreciated the call armor. Now, the only thing with that medium frame, with that call armor, because I'm dropping it back, because that it's producing certain sounds there, the call armor is a little bit rough to get used to. And that the call armor, for folks that are listening, is Native's kind of proprietary tape on their diaphragm calls.
You'll be able to tell it because it has the most beautiful graphics you've ever seen on it.
And it takes a minute to get used to it.
You just got to let it warm in your mouth. That's all it is.
It sits in there, man, and then it's just sweet. You could leave it in. I remember, I think that was in 2018, 2019, I met Wayne, and I think it was like a ribbon or something like that, and I couldn't figure it out, you know. But no, that tape is awesome. But I wish we looked at the tape as well for that seal. But like Joe was saying, you can notch that. But anywho, the diversity in just trying as much as you can and understanding what we're buying and why we're buying it and what the different latexes are doing and why, the thickness of latex, the stretch on latex, it all matters.
3 years ago, I sent before I knew Mark, I sent an email to him that says, dude, I love the way your calls sound, but this tape and this, at that time he had that one metal bar up on top of it, right? The metal bar didn't bother me as much as the tape did, and I said, and I was like, and he had large frames. And being somebody that you just start falling into things because that's what you've done, instead of exploring, I was like, are you ever going to make these in a medium and change your tape? Because I love the sound, right? Well, he heard a lot of that, and I think that's why he made changes. But what's interesting is, since he's made the change where people have the choice, it's still 50-50. People are still buying armor tape as compared and when he gave me the ones to run, because we're trying to decide what we're going to build for Elk Bros with him, I'm like, dude, I don't know, man. I might have to go gaff and armor because...
Yeah, I think you got to go both.
Yeah.
I really do. Because I'm thinking about talking to him about this for me. These are the ones he, custom for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I like them that much.
Yeah.
But I think I would do the same thing, is go 50-50 on them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had a gaff tape one too.
I have some here. That's actually his gaff tape right there.
No, I thought I had a gaff tape in this version.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he made one of them. And I love latex.
I mean, it's just really sweet sound, and like I said, when it comes to latex, I don't think there's any. Well, I can't say that, man, because I know how passionate Chavez is about the calls that he makes. I mean, this guy sits in his house making every call that you buy from them. He's making them, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we tease him and call it the dungeon. He's down in the dungeon, stamping these out, but. Man, Mark is working calls and he has one in his mouth the whole time he's doing it, and he's so critical of himself, right? He's so self-critical about how these things are.
That's the funny thing with him is, talking to him even before we recorded, he's like, I just want the bad stuff.
Yeah. Tell me the bad stuff.
Yeah, tell me the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Give me before we do anything, we want to know everything bad.
Yeah.
So it's pretty funny. But it's it's just interesting, man, the multitude of calls, and then people just picking one up, be it brand loyalty or they like the way it looks.
Right.
But in a nutshell, me and Joe have been talking about diversity in calls and the versatility in them, and really getting and looking at different sizes, different latex. Why those latex? I mean, I think it's the Pitch Black series by Phelps. And when I sat down with Jason, right, that was, I think they were out. Oh, you just spilled coffee all over yourself.
Yeah. The lid wasn't on.
I think they were out for maybe a year, and please, and it's a different latex. It's a textured latex that he went to on the Pitch Black series. So there's just so much out there. There's so much versatility, but nothing is bad. There ain't a bad call. At least out of the brands that I've tried that I've put in my mouth, man.
So let me add something though to this, because I know we're talking about the difference in the calls and blah blah this and that, but one thing I want to make sure too is you can help yourself a ton by not putting these boogers in your truck on a dashboard. Not chewing dip and then throwing one of these in your mouth.
I do that every day.
That's why you got 40 of them.
I'm on the mountain with Copenhagen and a call.
Yeah, you're keeping the call makers in business, man.
Yeah. I'll go right.
Yeah. I mean, alcohol, tobacco, those things tear down latex. Our saliva starts to break it down, but you add other components and you actually break those down a whole lot further. And I would tell other people too, try to become more of a finesse caller with, calm and not so much tongue pressure and just cranking air at it, just really try to tune yourself, I guess is the thing to say.
Baby steps, right? Start at a calf, work up to a bull.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see more interactions in the field if you carry that into the field.
Oh, dude, what you just said was huge, because what most people don't realize is we talk about everybody wants to screen bugles, and then you have cow calling. Everybody, about bringing a bull in with a cow. The calf call is the most underused call and one of the most effective when you're moving in on them, because people don't realize that there's a pecking order with bulls, but there's a pecking order with cows as well. And cows are even more particular about hearing another cow coming into the amongst them. Yep. So, yeah.
You get them calf calls going.
Yep.
And you watch some little calves, right? If you can sit back and you have time to just watch the animals, those little calves are walking around and they're just constantly.
Oh, yeah.
And they are the true satellites of the entire herd.
And they can get away with everything.
Yes, and they're going to float around everyone, right? The cows, the calves, the bulls, the satellite bulls. So if you can move in and around with that calf sound
They're going to
So
accept.
powerful.
They're going to accept that calf sound.
before anything else.
Yeah.
No threat to it.
Yep.
Herd mentality is protect the
Herd
youth,
mentality.
right? I mean,
maternal instinct.
Yeah.
You know, and okay, so there's some people that say a bull. God dang, I was in that coffee. That a bull will be attracted to a calf call and because of the breeding. I don't know. And maybe it's just my dad syndrome and grandpa syndrome that doesn't want to even think like that.
Right.
But I think bulls come into calf calls because bulls know calves have mamas.
Well, and it's maternal and paternal instinct.
Yeah.
If the bulls and the cows aren't protecting the calf, and the calf can't live,
Yep.
probably a predation or whatever it is, then guess what? The herd doesn't do well.
Yep. That's exactly right.
So I think there's probably a plethora of things going on with it, but I don't think we should discount the power of a calf call. And if you get an opportunity to sit and watch a calf and watch how he meanders through the herd, on the outskirt of the herd, and you can whistle and a calf will come running in.
Oh, you can whistle and bring a spike in like that too.
I can't find him. He already ran.
Goofy bastard spikes.
But the poor spikes are just the opposite. They can't do anything right.
Right.
Because they're
getting
feeling.
run off from everybody.
Yeah, they're feeling it, and yet nobody wants them to play. The bulls don't want them around because they're still a bull.
Mm-hmm.
The cows don't want them around because
They're still a bull.
and they're not a bull they want to breed with, right? So poor things, man. That's why they come running into everything because they just want to belong. I feel for spikes, dude.
No, you don't. You put an arrow in one. All right, me and Joe are gonna hit stop. Appreciate it, brother.
You bet, man.
Eat our breakfast that Chav and RC brought us. Thanks, boys.
Talk to you later.